Hello everyone, this is Jessica with Black Travelers Network, where we provide trips that focus on the Black experience in different parts of the world, and we cover news stories that happen in different parts of the African diaspora. So today's story is an update to a story we did a few weeks ago regarding the newly elected president of Liberia, George Weah, and his attempt to change the Liberian constitution to allow dual citizenship for, quote, non-Negroes. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees issued a fact sheet last month, February 2018, in an effort to highlight some of the most important facts about what's happening within Liberia politically. President George Weah faces criticism over call for citizenship to be granted to non-Negro descendants. Some Liberians have shown their opposition to Weah's call to amend Articles 22A and 27B of the Liberian Constitution, which would allow people of non-Negro descent to become citizens of Liberia. Weah, addressing the legislature in his first annual message to the nation, described the two articles as, quote, racist, and called for a repeal of the clauses of the Constitution limiting citizenship to only those of Negro descent and limiting land ownership to only citizens. We're going to take a closer listen to what he said in his speech.
Honorable ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to address you on what I consider to be my most urgent and imperative agenda. Since the founding of this country in 1847, more than 170 years ago, there have been certain restrictions on citizenship and property ownership that, in my view, have become serious impediment to the development and progress of the country. This restriction includes the limitation of citizens only to be black people, the limitation of property ownership exclusively to citizens, and so the restricted citizenship only to black people. This may have been appropriate for the 19th century and for the threats and conditions that existed at that time. However, here in the 21st century, I am of the view that these threats no longer exist and that these conditions have changed. In these circumstances, it is my view that keeping such a clause in our Constitution is unnecessary, racist, and inappropriate for the place that Liberia occupies today in the Committee of Nations. I believe that we should have nothing to fear from people of any other race becoming citizens of Liberia.
The chair of the House Committee on Good Governance declared that, quote, if you give Liberians' white counterparts the right to become citizens in Liberia and own properties, they have the money and will buy all the land from our people, end quote. Other groups opposing the amendment of the Constitution include the Economic Freedom Fighters of Liberia and the All-Liberian Conference on Dual Citizenship, which represents Liberians in the diaspora. But Liberia has received millions of dollars in assistance thus far this year and will continue to receive money. Liberia secures more than 55 million US dollars from the World Bank and the French government, and here's how the money breaks down. On February 1st, 2018, during the visit of the World Bank Country Director for Ghana, Liberia, and Sierra Leone, the World Bank committed $24.7 million, covering the 4th Poverty Reduction Support Development Policy operation. On February 21st, 2018, President Weah met with French counterpart Emmanuel Macron in his first official travel to Paris as head of state. Macron announced a $12.31 million grant for the immediate road maintenance. In addition, Macron committed $18.5 $75 million to create a platform for transformation through sport in Africa, headed by the French Development Agency and the African Development Bank. And for those of you who don't know, prior to taking office as president, George Weah, his former career, he was a soccer player. And so as a result of his past experience in athletics is an important part of his platform, and he definitely plans to put money and resources into sports in the African country of Liberia. We also met the president of the World Bank, Mukhtar Diop, and an additional budget support of $20 million US was announced to the Liberian government in June 2018. And so as a result, this is in excess of about $75 million that the country of Liberia is set to receive. It's really not a whole lot of money in the grand scheme of things if you think about how the country is broke and how they need to have money to operate and run a country very efficiently. So it's really not a whole bunch of money that they're securing, but it's really kind of heating up in Liberia because there are opposing sides. President Weah is saying in order for us to secure investments into the country, we have to allow non-blacks to become citizens. That's the only way they're going to feel compelled to invest in the country. And other people are saying, no, that's not necessarily true. We need to respect the language in the Constitution. We need to come up with other ways, other solutions for us to create jobs, for us to end poverty, for us to achieve the items of the newly elected president's agenda. The last thing Liberians want to do is to get rid of that clause. That clause is connected directly to the history of the creation of Liberia, and people want to protect it. So the newly elected president's desire to change this part of the Constitution is not necessarily embraced. And if you look closely at the clip we just showed, you'll see that not everyone in the audience is clapping. And if you listen a little bit closer, you will also hear some groans from some of the people in the audience, because many people are not really feeling changing the language in the Constitution to be inclusive of non-black people as citizens of the country of Liberia. Not everyone is feeling it, and not saying that everyone has to be feeling it, but it's a good chance that there are many people who support what Weah is trying to do but disagree with him on this one issue, if nothing else. George Weah is a former football player, soccer football player, and it doesn't totally surprise me that he's taken this position. To me, I think it's a very conservative position. I feel like he's almost saying, before we can get anything else done, I have a long list of things I want to get done while I'm president, one of which involves improving the education system, improving health care, increasing investments in the country. But before we can do any of that, he feels that the priority, the number one item that's out there that has to be handled, is to allow non-blacks to become citizens of Liberia. And I don't know about, I really struggle with that perspective, but I certainly can kind of understand. There are parts of it that I can understand why he would think that, but I don't necessarily, as an individual, I don't agree with it. I think that there are many other things that can be done before you take that approach. But I want to hear from you guys. Do you think that the newly elected president of Liberia, George Weah, is selling out the history of Liberia by working to change the Constitution to allow non-blacks to become citizens? Or do you feel in order for Liberia to be a competitive country, that it is important for them to allow citizenship to anyone who wants to become a citizen, that can sort of help and contribute to the goals and the mission of the country. So drop your comments below. It's a very tough issue. Like, what do you do when your country is broke? How do you close the gap? What are some of the first steps you take in order to do that? And I feel like whether it's Weah or any other president who is in the hot seat, these are important challenges that any political leader who's running an entire country that has a budget, let alone that doesn't have a budget, I think these are things that are normal and natural to struggle with. But to what degree is history and legacy important, and how much does it weigh into the decision that you make once you're in office? Again, very tough issues to flesh out. Drop your comments below. Don't forget to subscribe. And hey, check the description box to find out any updates that we have regarding what's happening in Black Travelers Network. So thank you guys for listening.